Good morning, everyone. This morning, I'm going to share with you the 5 best ever ways to remember people's names. Welcome along to FBP Live. I'm your host, Chantal Brodrick, and you have tuned into 5 minutes of FITBIZPIRATION, where every single week I share bite-sized business tips in around 5 minutes. Who have I got this morning? JT, good morning. Patrick, good morning. Great to see you both here with me today. So for anyone that is tuning in, whether it's going to be live today or if you're watching it later on, today it's all about getting some bite-sized business tips across to you. We try and keep it within about 5 minutes or so, but today our topic is all around how to remember people's names. Maddie, good morning. I've got everyone on board this morning. So guys, this week's edition of 5 Minutes of FITBIZPIRATION was actually inspired by episode 190 of the Fitness Business Podcast. And that episode, Stefan, good morning. That episode features Frank Nash from Stronger Personal Training. Now, it literally just came out about half an hour ago, so you probably haven't heard it just yet. But during my conversation with Frank, one of the things that we talked about is he told me that they actually spend an entire week working with new team members on how to remember people's names and how to really truly connect with their members. So for me, that was a little bit of an inspiration as to the topic that we're going to cover off today. It seems dark in Australia. I was going to say, I think our lighting's okay. It's actually a beautiful sunny day, Patrick. We're heading towards some warmer weather now. So you got to turn your lights on over there, I think. So guys, the thing about this particular topic for today is regardless of whether you are a fitness business owner, a manager, a personal trainer, or a group fitness instructor, I'm sure you'll agree that remembering people's names is part of what we have to do. Everyone does it on a daily basis, and it's really, really important connection piece between yourself and that person that you're meeting. Before we actually go into the tips today, there's actually a kind of, I guess, a really important thing to remember. When you are meeting someone new, you actually have to commit to learning that new name. You actually have to make a conscious decision that you are going to learn someone's name. So the tips that I give you are there to help you, but you actually need to make that conscious decision. And personally, I found, and I must be totally honest with you guys, this is not a strength of mine. Remembering people's names has not been a strength of mine previously. So I've really had to work and use some of these methods to get better at remembering names. So one of the things before we go into the 5 that I find is really important when you meet someone new is to make that initial eye contact with them. It is such an important part of making the commitment to remembering their name, but then making that eye contact. And I actually learned this from Michelle Bowden, who is an incredible presentation skills presenter. And she talks about connecting with people, connecting with your audience and with new people that you meet. And she talks about the click that happens when you look someone directly in the eye and they look directly back at you. What I encourage you to do is before you use any of these techniques that I take you through today, that initial eye-to-eye contact and that click, that split-second moment where you meet your eye contact with that new person, that is instrumental in the first part of what you do before you move into these 5 tips that we're going to take you through. How does that sound? If we've got a deal, then we can move on to the tips. So, yeah, Maddie's saying just keep repeating their name. We're going to talk about that in a second. So guys, there's one other thing. This is really important because it just happened about 2 minutes before I jumped online, and that is the Fitness Business Podcast just hit 275,000 downloads this morning. So can I have a love heart for that? Because that is unbelievable. That is just such exciting news for us. And I want to thank everyone that's watching live and those of you that are watching the recording. Thank you so much for all of your support and for downloading the show. We certainly did not expect to be posting those sort of numbers. So 275,000 makes me incredibly proud. I know that JT's proud and all of the team here on the show are really excited about that. So let's get on to our 5 minutes of FITBIZPIRATION, remembering people's names. Patrick, you're my timekeeper. Peter, good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. Let's get started. So the first one is the power of 3 spoken. I'll recap all of these at the end, but the power of 3 spoken. So what I mean by that is saying their name 3 times in 3 minutes, saying it out loud. It's repeating their name 3 times in the conversation that you're having with them. I personally find that it really helps in that time period that you introduce that new person to someone else. So you've met them for the first time, you've learnt their name, or you've heard their name for the first time, repeat it in conversation with them, but also if you have the opportunity, introduce them to someone else, because what that means is you're not only the listener of the information, but you then become the teacher. So the mindset changes and it will help you with that memory trigger. So that's number one, the power of 3 spoken 3 times in 3 minutes. Make sure that you give me love hearts or give me a little thumbs up if you like some of these ones that we go through this morning. Guys, number 2 is the power of 3 written. This one's a little bit harder depending on what circumstance you meet them in. However, it's as simple as writing down their name 3 times in a row directly after you've actually met them. So if you have a chance, grab a piece of paper. If you don't have a piece of paper, just pop into the notes section of your phone. Look at all those love hearts. JQ, is that you, girl? I can see you there. Thank you so much for jumping on today. I hope you like these tips. So write down their name 3 times, either on a piece of paper or in your phone. It will help with that memory trigger. And if you have a little bit more time, then not only write down their name, but perhaps just write down a little note as to where you met them or something specific that you remember about them. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the famous name association. This one's really good if that helps you. So for me personally, I have quite a lot of gym class members, like group fitness members come up, and I'm learning names constantly. I find the famous name association, once that's in my head, I do not forget it. So I have a girl by the name of Lara, and when she introduced herself, she said, just remember Lara Croft. And I've never forgotten it since. I've got another girl whose name is Xena, really unusual name. And she said to me, yeah, like Xena Warrior Princess. So if you can create, or they can create, a name association with someone famous, then that's a really good way of remembering their name as well. So 3 down, 2 to go. Number 4 is people that have an unusual name. So actually get them to take the time to spell it out to you. I find this one is really important, because if someone has an unusual name or a name that you haven't heard of before, then it's even harder to remember than a normal name a lot of the time. So a couple of things, get them to spell it out. If you can, actually write it as they're spelling it out to you, whether you're writing it on a piece of paper or if you're popping it in your phone. And then the other part of that is, once you've written their name as it is actually spelt and you understand how it's spelt, I find that it helps to, underneath that, actually write their name phonetically. So how do you pronounce it? Because that's how you're going to practice it in your head, is how it sounds phonetically, which might be different to how it's actually spelt, or how it's spelt. So if you write it phonetically underneath, then it gives you the opportunity to practice until you meet that person again. So that's tip number 4. And number 5 is my absolute go-to, and that is digital reminders. So you can do one of 2 things. If you want to just use a free digital reminder, then as soon as you've met that new person, jump into the reminders section of your phone, write their name in that reminder section, and then set yourself an alarm for 1 hour after you've met them. Okay, 1 hour after you've met them. So you've put their name in your phone, you've set the alarm for 1 hour later. What it means is that an hour later, after you've probably moved on, maybe you've taught a class, or you've done your pre-exercise session with that person, or you've done the gym tour with that person, their name is going to come up as a reminder on your phone, and it's a really good way to reinforce their name for you. The second one, which is my actual go-to, is utilizing an app. Now, I, for years and years, used a particular app whose name I won't tell you because they no longer exist. I don't want to confuse the issue, but there is a replacement app now that is called Namorize. That is Namorize. I'll say it again, Namorize. It's $2.99. It's not expensive, but basically in that Namorize app, you're going to input the person's name, where you met them, any information that you remember about them, and it has an automated reminder feature. So it actually come back in about an hour, or I think you can set it in 12 hours or even 24 hours to remind you of that person's name. So that's it, guys. Let's do a super quick recap. So number 1 was the power of 3 spoken. So say their name 3 times in the first 3 minutes, and if you can, introduce them to someone else so that you become the teacher and it changes your mindset around that name. Number 2 is the power of 3 written. So write down their name 3 times in a row, wherever you can, on a piece of paper or on your phone. Number 3 is the famous name association. So try and think of if there is an actor, an actress, or someone who springs to mind that associates their name. I gave you the examples of Lara Croft and Xena Warrior Princess. If they've got an unusual name, then you're getting them to spell it out, and then you're actually writing it down phonetically so that you can practice it over and over again. And the last one, of course, was the digital reminders. So setting a reminder on the reminders part of your phone, or downloading an app like Namerize. As I said, it's $2.99. It's a fantastic way of keeping track of names. I think it's probably my number one go-to of all of those methods. So guys, what do you think? Was there 1 or 2 things in there that you can probably use? I hope so. I want to thank you so much. There were lots of love hearts going up through then. That was amazing. What's everyone said? Okay. JT said, wasn't Michelle Bowden a guest on the podcast? Very good, JT. Michelle was definitely a guest on the podcast. So if anyone missed the very beginning of this broadcast, I was saying about how important it is before you actually do any of those 5 methods of remembering names, that you take the moment, A, to commit to make a conscious decision that you are going to remember someone's name, and B, Michelle Bowden taught me that what you need to do is make direct eye contact with that person to the point that you have that click moment where you connect before you move into the conversation. It's a split-second moment, but it's that moment that you know that both of you have made eye contact and you've clicked, you've connected for that split-second moment. So Michelle Bowden did do an amazing interview on the show a little while back. We were talking about connecting with people, ironically. So I'll post a link to that show if anyone missed it, because it's amazing. Patrick, thank you for the congratulations. 275,000 downloads. I got to tell you, that's absolutely made my morning. JQ, thank you so much for all the love. It is lovely to see you on here. Stefan, thank you. He's saying you like tip number 1, saying their name 3 times in 3 minutes. I love that one, especially the introduction. I think that's really good. Awesome. Stefan, you are nailing this. This is amazing. Power of 3 written. Brilliant. Unbelievable. Thank you so much, guys. Good. What's JQ saying? I use the digital reminder by taking a photo. Yep, and sending yourself a message. That's a fantastic tip as well. Guys, thank you. 5 minutes and 50 seconds, including recap. That's got to be a record. Thanks, Patrick, for being my timekeeper. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me this morning for 5 minutes of FITBIZPIRATION. I hope you enjoyed those tips. Make sure you listen out for episode 190 of the Fitness Business Podcast, featuring Frank Nash from Stronger Personal Training. And I will see you guys back here, same time, same place next week. Have a phenomenal day up ahead.